Welcome to the I Am a Hardscaper series on the How to Hardscape podcast, and this is a roundtable edition where we have four returning guests here. We've got Jordan and Kyle of Evolve Design Build, Antonio of Zeppa's, or a service for every season on Instagram, and Mike of Elevate Outdoor Living, or elevate.mi on Instagram. We do a deep dive into several different topics on this episode and go further into each of their businesses that we've already covered in previous episodes. So if you haven't checked them out, definitely check out those episodes on the podcast, as well as check them out online to see the work that they are doing there. And if you need a team of accountants, bookkeepers, or CFO services, go check out Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com and get $200 off when you mention the How to Hardscape podcast. We'll be talking about them further later in this episode. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Yeah. So I was just kind of curious. I'd honestly been riding around the last 2 days, Antonio, and coming from a maintenance background, I just am blown away what it's got to be like to fill up those mowers now. I remember at one point we were finishing, filling up 21 mowers in 4 or 5 trucks on top of our guys that were going out to install. So I'm just kind of curious how you're combating that with the whole, SEC contract and, HOA contracts and pre-signed stuff, because you account for inflation, but nobody accounts for that.
Yeah. So we've moved we're in the residential sector, high-end residential. So we have a lot more control than a commercial contract being locked in for 3 years or something like that. And so we've raised prices across the board 10%, and 10% may not seem like a ton of money, but it is accounting for some of it. I know that we've moved from, we've been running all X marks, and we're going to move to right mowers because we've seen high efficiency increases. So I think that's going to help with some of it. And the other thing that we're looking at long term, that's not necessarily a today thing, but we are looking heavy into robotic mowers. In fact, we're a partner with a company called Scythe Robotics. We're a pilot partner. And so these are all electric mowers. We were just with them. I was down in Orlando just last week. We were with Billy, which is somebody on their marketing team. And we're just continuing to learn. We've already given money deposits for mowers. So we're really looking at trying to move to electric autonomous mowers. And so the other push that we're going to have is I want to make an initiative to move to 100% battery powered equipment. So that's kind of some of the longer term stuff we're doing. And then as far as short term, I posted a video today on Instagram. We're using a company called Link to Pump. Link to Pump's going to help us track exactly what our fuel costs are, how much is going into the diesel truck compared to the mower, compared to the gas. So we're just going to be able to track every piece of it. And then for some of the guys that may or may not know, every fuel we buy, whether we pay for it at our shop or we buy it from the gas station, we're paying into highway use. There's a tax for highway use. The assumption is anything is being used on the highway. If you have mowers, trimmers, blowers, chop saws, any of these things that you can show how much is not used on highway use, you can actually get a tax credit back or a refund. And so we'll be able to do this with Link to Pump, and we'll be able to give an accurate report every month. And I think that we'll get somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 back a year is where I think we're going to be. So that was a long answer, but.
Yeah, now I'm familiar with that highway usage, road tax. To do the same thing with diesel as far as equipment's concerned. It's kind of hard to track. You can get a percentage, but I think maybe with an app. But I'm definitely familiar with it. That's a good thought. It's crazy to me. I know this is hardscaping, but it's just wild how people are combating that. You know what I mean?
So how is everyone else combating, at least with quotes? What are you doing? Do you have a stipulation in your contract to deal with those material rises? Does it matter? Well, I'm sure you've got some spillover from last year where maybe if you didn't have that stipulation, you're kind of biting the bullet at this point. What's kind of everybody's story when it comes to this?
Yeah, I'll go. I think so. I haven't honestly, since I've been in business, dealt with these big fluctuations in material costs. So it's obviously a learning curve to it, and we're trying to um, I'm trying to just talk to whoever I can and see how we're all dealing with it. But um, really, we've set ourselves up so, let's say we signed a project you said for last year, and it's on the books for this year. Um, we get enough of a deposit to buy that material right away, and typically, so we'll take like a 30% deposit. We'll buy that material right away, and our suppliers are willing to sit on it, which is really cool. That helps us out. Um, as for moving forward, we did add some verbiage in our contracts that says, essentially, material costs are kind of above our head. I think everyone's pretty much aware of the situation now. Like, wood prices obviously go crazy and fluctuate like nuts, but now we're going to see, especially in the hardscape industry, the trucking and the fuel is really, I think, going to drive our prices up a little bit as well. So we did put some verbiage in our contracts that just says, it's going to be almost like a fluid situation where, if we see this increase, just be prepared for it.
Kyle and Jordan, I think the last time we spoke, you guys actually do a little bit of traveling to some job sites because you're a bit spread out there. What does this look like for you in terms of that gas increase and yeah, just what that looks like for Evolve?
Oh, it's challenging. It's definitely challenging. I think that nobody's perfect. The hard facts is people want to get on Instagram and, act like everything's hunky dory, but we're having our own challenges. I would say first part of the year with stuff we had signed, we've been fortunate enough, to stay pretty booked up. I mean, we're extremely booked up, but I think I didn't do a great job at maybe forecasting those costs. As far as long term, I have a clause in there now to compensate, but the thing is how much do you ask for, right? I mean, you can't go to a customer and have verbiage that makes it so open-ended that they don't feel like they want to sign, right? Because at the end of the day, our clientele, and I'm not saying that smaller clientele are not intelligent, but we're dealing with very smart people. They have the money to do these projects. They're spending big money. They obviously do well for themselves. They're not going to just sign up for something open-ended. So it's challenging, I think from fuel costs, Kyle today was talking about these little cans we order and, how they, we like to have them. They go right in the salt. They're easy. We're trying to do what we can, but it's hard. Honestly, we're building and we're constructing and we're kind of adapting and I'm right. It's crazy. You can go change a SKU in your system and then be changing it 2 weeks later because the materials have gone up that much. I've never seen it where you don't have the time to almost adjust your SKUs. They're going up so fast, I don't know that we're going to get to the point where we're telling my dad, I was talking to my dad. He's like, you got to have all the guys riding one truck. Tell them they can't go out for lunch. Stop here. You want to ruin a culture quick? Tell them they can't stop by the gas station and get a chicken biscuit. I mean, so I don't know how crazy we're going to get. I think we're doing the best we can. I'm trying to find techniques and floating pools all on the pools. We're trying to get multiple loads at a time. I mean, Kyle, the guys pack lunch every day. There's simple things, but I don't think that the answer is to skimp out on cheaper products or installation methods or try to cut corners. I think the biggest thing is that you stay true to your work and just do the best you can. I know it's probably not a great answer for a lot of people, but it's hard to say what is the right thing.
Absolutely.
Jordan, I would say, to stay true to the good work and the quality and stuff like that. I think it's really important that people are talking about this and getting out in front of people because, we do want to differentiate ourselves from the guys that are putting in cheaper work. I mean, we're redoing a 1,800 square foot patio right now, and there's in our region we should have a 6 to 8 inch base before any bedding layer and stuff like that. And then it's literally sitting on 1 inch. And this is a guy that's been around for 20 years, does all the home shows, says all the right things. And it's we just can't compete with that. we're never going to be able to compete with that. So I think staying true to the quality is a big deal.
Yeah, I think that this time it's going to give rise to a very big paver maintenance and paver restoration cycle because of this work that's going to be skimped out on, especially like Antonio, you said the base there. I'm sure lots of that has happened in the past 2 years with this demand that we've seen. And obviously there's not enough good companies going around to keep up with that demand.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle's probably tired of hearing. Kyle got to ride with me all day. We rode together going all over. So like I said this twice today, and he's like probably tired of hearing it, but I'm going to tell y'all anyway. If I go into Starbucks, so the running joke is Kyle and I both like Starbucks a lot, right? Well, every time we go in there, it's $7 for a coffee, it feels like. And the way I look at it is the day that I go into Starbucks, because I go almost daily, and there's nobody in the line, I'm going to start getting concerned. But I don't know what you guys have seen. I understand things are high, but when I go to Starbucks, there's 50 people in the line, and I'm waiting on my order that I put in on my app, which tells me they got money to spend. So I'm giving out prices on where my margins need to be. I am certainly not closing as many leads because I've had to increase and we're trying to be more profitable. I think we struggled with our net on where we wanted to be, and I think we're trying to find that spot. But I think that the people that are good at this and they're willing to put in the work and articulate and convey to the customers the quality they do are going to have to filter their leads and do more quotes. I think we're going to have to work harder, but I don't think the work's necessarily going to dry up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So at this time of year, when at least for me, and I know some of you guys, the season's starting to ramp up and we're going to start getting going soon here. What are you conveying to your employees? Kyle, what are you talking about to the guys on site, especially like where profit margins might get tighter, to be honest, in this time of year, and with contracts from last year transferring over to this year, and just honoring those prices if you are, or if you had that stipulation of price increases for gas and for materials. You know, what are you guys conveying to your guys, your employees at this time of year to, I don't know, meet production rates or to set goals and accomplish those? What are you doing now?
Yeah, so one thing we've just recently implemented, I know that I think you had Wes from Synced Up on a little while back. So we've recently we've started using the Synced Up system, and we actually brought all of our employees in for a training day, and we actually showed them the numbers. Of course, we don't have any production numbers in our system yet because we're just getting used to it, starting to use it, just getting our feet wet with it. But we showed them how the system worked, got our crew leaders set up with it, and we said we're going to literally bring them in and say 6 months, and we're going to show them where our profit margins are, go over all our money, where we're making money, where we're losing money, where we need to pick up on our production, where maybe we need to pick up our estimates. Maybe we're running behind on every let's say edger install that we've done for the past 6 months. Well, maybe that's not a problem with the guys and their production rates. Maybe that's the estimate that needs to be adjusted. So that's just one thing that we've done. We think that that's going to just being transparent and saying, look, this is the money we're making. This is where we need to be in order to give everybody not only a great salary, but continue to provide everybody with benefits, make sure everybody has, all of the right apparel and everything, obviously, because branding's important. But, we want to take care of them, and we want to show them that we're investing in them, and that, we're making money, but the goal is to build a team and a good culture where they'll want to stick around, when it inevitably times do get tough, as we're, seeing right now.
That's the true testament to culture, right? Times get tough and you still stick to, your word, your promise, your company, what the culture is. It's it's definitely a test.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. We did, man. We're trying to be more transparent. He's right. Kyle is like, and Kyle keeps them motivated. Like he keeps them crushing. But like, I think like a lot of businesses frown on like being able to show what they're making and stuff, and like show what they're like. You didn't open the business to we're not necessarily showing them our salaries or whatever. I'm not saying that's what it's about. I'm just saying show them the net, where we're at. How can we improve? Because if we improve, they improve. Mm-hmm. And so, like Kyle said, I think just being transparent, man, it makes a huge difference for everybody and speeds them up. Because at the end of the day, you can have the best place in the world to work, but you still want to make money. You still want to be profitable. So if we could tell them how they can be more profitable and show them, telling them and showing them is two different things.
Yep.
Jordan and Kyle, we actually took our entire P&L, put everything just in percentages of income, corresponded that with 100 pennies, right? So your income would be 100 pennies. And we would show these guys exactly where everything went. So it'd be like, hey, the hardscape division, you have 30 pennies. You've made 30 pennies for the company. This department's made 20 pennies. And we have all the pennies, right? So you feel like you're rich. And then it's like, all right, it's time to pay. It's time to pay. And these are all actual numbers from our company. It's time to pay our team. So, everybody's got to push in 2 pennies or whatever the percentage is. And then we go to materials. It's time to pay materials. Well, you get to your GP, we try and hit a 60% GP, it looks great. You're still left with all these pennies. But then it's like, all right, now we got to pay, our overhead, right? So here goes the field managers. Here goes everything else that's below the GP line. And, what you end up with is not as many pennies as people would think. So it's just a really good example.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. I never heard that before, so it's definitely killer.
Yeah, good visual. Mike, what about you? What do you do for transparency? I know we talked about on our interview the rebranding. Sorry, not the rebranding, but fairly recent rebranding, but actually going all in on design build and moving away from that maintenance still applying. How transparent are you with your employees at this point?
So I've definitely gotten, especially on our install side, I've shared, how much these jobs are worth. Obviously, a lot of my guys see, how much the material costs. I'd like to get better at showing what we're making on the job, because I think we all know there's a really common misconception that these guys think that all we're doing is just raking in the money, and we're just living large, right? Because we make all this money, run $100,000 project, we must be making $99,000. And it's kind of the vibe that I've gotten in the past, and it's made me a little hesitant. But I just know that, like, our consistent employees, like, they understand how these businesses run, and I think I've lost some people from being open and maybe have conveyed the wrong the wrong image, how much we're actually making, and that being like this equipment, if we go out an employee event and I'm buying everybody's stuff, and maybe they think that, like, oh, this guy's got all this money, and I'm just trying to do it as a good, faith thing to support my team. But I think I love Antonio's version of showing, percentages and pennies, and it really puts it in a perspective, of I guess what it comes down to in the end with the net profit.
Do any guys have incentives, like an incentive program around completing a job on time, on schedule, or prior to that, or hitting some sort of profit margin on a project? Do you have any incentives for crews, employees in your business, or are you thinking about moving towards something like that?
We do. We have a really good one. I was talking about today. 5-6 years ago, I was trying to figure out how to do this. I knew I wanted to do it, but I was like, if we're not making any money, this is before I knew our numbers very well. If we're not making any money, and then we're incentivizing them to not make any money, we're going to sink the ship even quicker, right? So I was nervous to do it, but now we have a controller. He's built some really good systems. I think Mike's seen our incentive program. I think he saw it in person, and then he also saw it in a demo. And basically, we have budget versus actual on every single job we do. We measure daily on performance. At the end of the month, we bonus these guys based off of actual performance. And so that's been like, we've literally moved gross profit in some departments like 15%. 15 is probably a pretty extreme example, but there's a lot of departments we've easily moved 10 percentage points. And so, like for us, it's been looking at the job daily, not weekly, not monthly, daily, how we're performing.
The thing that I saw with Antonio's setup that I really liked is when I was down there for GIE, you know, he has a TV monitor in the shop that all of the guys can see, you know, their percentages, and it's red, green, and yellow based on how they did for the day. So, you know, like in my mind, it gamifies it. And, you know, we're all competitive to an extent. And so, you know, kind of bringing that gamification in is where I think he's really seeing that progress that the guys want to drive, and they always want to be in the green. And if they're in the yellow, you know, they know that they got to make it up. And I think that's why he's having so much success with it, because it makes it fun, right? It just makes it fun being at work.
So is it like per crew, or is it per like guy? Like, you know, sometimes we struggle with trying to, you know, separate guys. We're having to bounce around or whatever the case may be, because obviously we don't have, when you have maintenance, like when I had maintenance, we had 5 crews, you know? And so like now we really only have 2 to 3 crews on a daily basis, but we crank out the same revenue. You know what I mean? It's just a different business model. So how does that work? It's just, you know,
it's for all of our departments. And so some of the maintenance is a little easier to measure. The larger jobs, we've got to break those down into segments. You know, so we're trying to look at the job anymore. Our construction is not just pavers. It would be, you know, some carpentry involved. It would be some pavers. There's some softscapes, irrigation. So we try and break that project down into a segment, and then from there we can get that down to, you know, a $30,000 number, $15,000 number. You know, the whole project might be $100,000, but we try and break it into these smaller bites that we can understand, and then we would have to take that and divide that by the days that it would be forecasted or it'd be budgeted for, and then we just benchmark off those days. I did a Zoom and recorded it with our controller, Mike, and a handful of other guys. I'd be more than happy to share it or whatever, but it took a lot of hours, a lot of time to create, but it's been highly successful. I think we're on year 3, and it's moved big time. And it's like playing a game of basketball or it was like playing a game of basketball, but like, Jordan, we don't know if you're winning or I'm winning, right? And so it's just put it to where literally these guys will be in the yellow, and they start to understand windshield time now. Because they're like, man, why did I work just as hard as I did yesterday? Why am I in the yellow? And it's like, well, you drove out and we got rained out. So usually you have an hour spread between a 10-hour day. Now you have an hour spread between a 4-hour day. And so they start understanding things like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so we daily input numbers, and it's just it has really helped.
Yeah, it sounds super, super helpful. I think it would be challenging. Not that we couldn't do it. We're seeing that with Synced Up. I mean, Kyle has been like, it's hard because we're learning, but he's been logging a bunch of stuff, and we've seen, you know, our man hours and all that in real time, which has been super helpful. But I think it's challenging because we've noticed our jobs are bigger and bigger and bigger, and like it just, you know, there's a lot going on with them. And now that we're installing pools, so the pools have their own separate man hours, those guys come in, but like there's like, I don't know, transition. We just Kyle was actually talking about it today, how we need to get kind of everybody on it. Originally, we thought we were just going to get our foreman, but have everybody log everything in case they're bouncing around from job to job, you know?
What's your average job size ticket item, or like, you know, pool, everything, whatever? What's your average job size right now?
I'd say 75 to 150.
All right. So on those jobs, we would look at it and say, all right, what makes up that job? You know, so the pool job would be measured separately. You know, we'd want to kind of complete that task before we move to the next piece. And, you know, it is, you know, that's pretty much where our job sizes are in the construction, would be maybe a little bit lower, maybe 70 to 100 or 125. But I would say most of our construction jobs are in that size at this point. And we just look at it as like, knocking each one of those pieces out one at a time before we move on to the next one.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, and Kyle, and he'll tell you, we kind of got that going on with the tools and the materials. It's just, I don't know, man. Like we're probably transitioning into where we need more operational staff and a couple of different things to help out with some of that stuff and accounting for it. It's and that goes back to like all the rising costs and stuff. It's something really everybody should be tracking. Like it's easy for all of us to get on here and be like, oh yeah, we're perfect at that. People look at your Instagram, look at the cool stuff you build, look at your Facebook. But like, look, man, every single day we're getting better and learning and trying to figure out ways to track it. And Kyle and I talk about that pretty regularly, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Is it easier to just do it by a full project and realizing a gross profit margin that you want to hit on every single project and providing an incentive to that crew that hit that? Is that not easier, or is it too difficult once you get into pools and all this customization that you're getting into for that? It's easier at that point to break it down by a section and make sure that you hit those at least for like an incentive program. Does that make sense? And I don't know who that is meant to who's supposed to answer that. It just came into my head and I thought I'd throw it out there.
I mean, we definitely try to bonus the guys when we can. I mean, I think that, again, we were talking about it today because we had time. It was a rain day, but I mean, don't you agree, Kyle? We're trying to like get where we can. I think they see it, right? It's good. They should see it. But also money, when you give them a little money or, whatever the case may be, you have bonuses, that's helpful for everybody. Like we all like that. Who doesn't like that? You know what I mean? Put something in my pocket, So I think that's like, I don't know what we're going to do or how we're going to phase it, but we're going to be transparent, and that's what we're trying to do and get it more routine, if that makes sense.
So I kind of made a sheet. I came up with a spreadsheet that, you input your total job hours, so if it's a 400 man hour job, you input that, and it's got a formula. So it breaks it out into how many days it's going to be, and I base our weeks on 120 man hours. So that's a 3-man crew, 40 hours a week. And so each day they're allotted 24 man hours per day. Now that can be 2 guys working, 12s if one isn't there, or it's 3 working 8. And kind of did the same thing that Antonio did. And so we're inputting the hours every day so they can see, all right, here's where we're at for the day. Maybe they went over a day. If they come in under, it's going to show that. And then at the end of the week, it's going to show, okay, you used, 120 hours out of a 120-hour work week. So you used 100% of your man hours. Pretty much broke that down to where when it gets down to the end of the job, on the last 120 hours, which is the last week of the job, the color changes to like a really bright red. So it's noticeable. So these guys know we're on the last week of this job. If we got to pick it up, now's the time to do it. So I kind of thought, it's on me to manage material on these bigger jobs. I'm the one quoting them. I'm the one who's project managing these projects. So the material's not really on them. But one thing that we're going to try and do is have weekly meetings with my team leads and say, okay, how did this week go? Or how did this last week go? And there's 3 reasons why they should be behind, right? One is just an act of God, weather, machine breaks down, whatever, something just completely out of our control. Another reason is it's my fault. I misbid this job, and I can pretty easily recognize, yep, I messed this up. And then 3 would be, if let's say they built a kitchen and had to some reason tear it down and rebuild it again, that was on them for possibly not executing something, not going, according to plan or whatnot. And those are kind of the 3 scenarios of why they would be in the red. And that's why we're going to have these weekly meetings to just address those and see how we can pivot. And, a big thing that I'm trying to do this year is just planning and communication. I think we all, I don't want to say we all, but it's definitely a struggle, when you're in the heat of the season, to just make sure that you're staying on the plan and you're communicating everything when you're, running around 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, I could see that.
Speaking of meetings and meeting with your crew, in your business, has there been a point in time where something's come up with an employee, they brought something up, and it's changed something the way in which you operate in your business? Anything that's or even something that's ongoing that you are trying to improve on that has come up from a crew member that said, hey, it would be much more efficient if we did it this way, or anything in general that you want to touch on with that?
Kyle deals with the guys more day to day than I do. I'm not gonna lie; he probably can tell us some stuff.
So, I mean, we're constantly getting input, obviously, and I mean, some of it's great, some of it. A lot of times, the input is, why aren't we doing it this way? And there's an answer. There's a reason. Look, and I think that's when it's important to explain. Look, there's a reason why we're doing the job in this order, or whatever the case may be. But I'm also willing to change the way, we do things if it makes sense. I mean, this one small example would be, we have a installed trailer with all our tools in it, and we try to keep everything in it and organized as best as we can. Of course, by the end of every day, it always seems to be a lot messier than we started. But one thing I noticed was a couple of the guys were starting to get like, their own hammer. Like this would be Benny's hammer. And instead of, trying to discourage that, because, I wanted to make sure everyone has access to the same tools, I actually went out and got everyone their own just small tool bag, and tried to outfit it with the most basic stuff, like pencils, knives, some safety equipment, some PPE, hammer, trowel, the stuff we use every day, like speed square, and gave everybody their own, labeled tools. And, nothing, it wasn't anything major, but just wanted to, that's something I never really thought about doing before. But, that's what they were moving towards. And I thought, why not just go along with it and get everyone their own little bag that they can keep track of. And it's helped a lot. They really like having their own tools. And I mean, we're not talking about everybody having their own cutoff saw. That would get expensive. But
yeah, it's funny. I didn't know he did it. I was like, I just, we're partners, so whatever he does, I support. But they were walking one day. I noticed like Jay had his bag. They take them to their cars and their vehicles. Like they're that. I mean, they're that proud of their own tools.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where y'all going with those tools? He's like, oh, those are bags. Boss man got those for us. I'm like, oh, okay. So, I mean, they have their own bags. I mean, they literally put them in their vehicles. Like, and it's funny, man. Like they bring them out the next day. Like they go in and out of the trailer. They don't want anybody touching their stuff,
It makes a big difference. I mean,
yeah.
You don't have people looking for pencils in the trailer every day, and they've also, they can bring them right out to the job. So, I mean, that's just one small example. We've got, we're constantly asked, willing to hear feedback from them and tell them, yeah, that's a great idea, or no, there's a good reason why we don't do it that way.
I like that.
We did a similar thing, and we bought a new enclosed trailer this year, and I left it all up to my team lead to outfit it out. And I told him, I'm like, I want 4 cubbies, so everyone on the crew has their own cubby inside the trailer. And we did a similar thing where, like, we got little side pouches that clip on and off. You're gonna get your pencils, tape measure. Everyone's getting a tape measure because everybody has their tape measure, right?
Mhm.
And if you take someone else's tape measure, it just causes issues. And so, we did a similar thing, and I think it gives the guys a sense of ownership in the company in it, and I think it really gets them to buy into, man, these guys really care about us just to do some of these little things. And I'm the same way. I try and ask for input as much as possible, because the reality is I don't know everything, and having someone looking at it from a different angle, just, they're going to see something that I might not, and we might need to run it that way. And so I think it just helps, keeping them engaged, keeping them involved. And like I said, it just gives them ownership in what they're doing.
I just want to take a moment to talk about Cycle CPA right now. In your business, you want accurate bookkeeping and financial statements every month, but instead, you're often left with limited time to focus on the accounting side of your business and no reports to show for it. At Cycle CPA, they not only handle the bookkeeping, but also provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, super important, financials by service line, advisory, meetings, and so much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants can do anything from bookkeeping to CFO services. And they're specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, so if you want somebody to take care of your numbers to help you through that process so that you're not coming home late at night after a day on the job site and having to do this, visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. No, I love that idea. It's something like as small as that can be a huge difference to employees. Now, kind of turning this conversation into another direction, moving forward here in these coming months and maybe a couple of years, are you comfortable still taking on debt? Does this change the way you're operating your company moving forward in the short term here? Just like what's happening right now with rising material costs, with gas prices, with the stock market, everything that you see. Does any of this change the way you operate your business in terms of comfortability with debt? Yes or no? Why or why not? Whoever wants to take that.
Yeah, so I kind of I already bought our stuff for this year, but with just seeing with how the way everything's going, it's definitely making me kind of just take a step back and say, oh, do we really need this excavator, this new excavator right now? I've already committed to a couple purchases and we've bought as much as we can cash. And we have two machines or two things that we're waiting on that we did pull out loans for, but we're definitely trying to just be smart about what we're taking on and making sure that it's a well thought out purchase and not just running out and going, oh, I need another track skid steer. When the reality is we can just go rent another track skid steer for the day or 2 days that we need it, where ours is down or we really need it. So yeah, I've definitely put some thought in it, and then really just working on building up some good cash reserves. So when opportunity happens, we can be prepared for it.
Yeah, we I don't know, it's been challenging, to be honest with you, getting into the pools and the time we did. We're certainly trying to pay some things off and try to get a little more lean. We have really nice equipment now, so it's hard for us to complain because we've had some real crap boxes. We really have. We were talking about that today, actually. But it's hard because when you get into new parts of the industry, like it's really funny what we're seeing with pools, and hardscapers are becoming pool installers, and good ones, because they understand the techniques and the leveling and the critical installation methods, and if it's the build for design build, and so it's challenging when you grow and you need new equipment for that in these times. So we're trying to be mindful of that, but in the same breath of air, we just had to sign up for a rather large excavator, that wasn't cheap. So, but yeah, I think we're trying to conserve a little bit ourselves, but it's hard for sure.
It's definitely scary times. I think it's a great I don't know, you gotta be careful going both ways. You don't want to overextend yourself, obviously. You also don't want to miss out on any opportunities, because obviously it's a great I think it's a great example of why you always need to make sure, no matter what the economy looks like, that you're in a good place financially. You don't want to overextend yourself, but again, you also don't want to just constantly sit back. There's always going to be a reason why you shouldn't expand the business or grow your company. And I think you've got to just, no matter what the economic landscape is, you've got to be balanced and make sure that you are making financially smart decisions.
That's the truth. Like, nobody knows what anything's going to bring in the future here, and especially in the short term. And if you would have kind of taken a step back 2 years ago with everything that was coming up, you would have missed out on 2 years of probably the greatest we may ever see with this industry. So yeah, like nobody knows where this is going, and that's smart. Like you need to be positioned to be able to pivot fast either way, whatever way that might be. Antonio, did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I got something real quick. I think Kyle, I think that's really smart. We definitely need to be smart. You know, for me, it was really tough. I grew up in a household that basically, you know, if you couldn't afford it, you don't buy it, right? You know, if you can't pay cash for this thing, I didn't. My dad did very well for himself, but we never lived a flashy lifestyle at all. You know, it was, you know, we never bought a new car. You know, not that we had anything that was junk, but you know, it just was being smart. And so I had to combat that when I bought, or sorry, when I got into my business and I started growing a business. I realized that, you know, you can't sacrifice short-term capital for long-term debt if you're trying to grow a business. You know, and so that would mean tying up. We were buying tons of used equipment that would cost a lot of money. And we would literally be tying up cash for something that we could, you know, be financing. And so now we try and get the longest terms we can on a piece of equipment at 0%. And honestly, our industry is really good about stuff with 0%. But if there's a pretty low interest rate, I'll even sink into that, even if we have the money, just because for us, I much rather have that cash sitting there for day-to-day expenses, payroll, other things like that. I've been in situations where we haven't had cash sitting there and it's very uncomfortable. So
that's true.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I certainly had similar upbringing. I mean, I don't know similar upbringing, but I was also raised with the mindset that you don't want to go into debt. My dad, I remember telling me, you don't want to get a credit card until, you know, he said you should buy everything cash. And, you know, that's certainly not possible in today's world. You've got to be willing to take on some debt. It's at the end of the day, it's just a balance. It's what you feel comfortable doing and what you feel like you can afford.
Kyle, I'm sitting here laughing. I bet I can confidently say that he's not a business owner, is he?
No, he's not.
It's same with my dad. You know, he's like the credit card and this and that. It's like credit card's my favorite thing. You know, get myself 30 days with the supplier, get myself 30 days with the credit card, pay this thing in full, and now I just got a free vacation because of the points. You know, it's like it doesn't get much better than that.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to be careful. I understand where I understand where they're coming from. You've seen it gone wrong plenty of times, but at the end of the day, you gotta be comfortable taking risks in this business.
Yeah. The other thing is too, like, you know, saying that, Antonio, makes a lot of sense. You know, like unfortunately, we're in a time where production is more than downtime. And a lot of these guys will buy, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like, listen, if you saw some of the equipment I had, you'd laugh. I mean, it was bad, but like, you know, we're not tooting our horn. We just had to drop $20,000 on a new excavator, you know? But here's the thing. Every single day that excavator is going to go to work. There's a big difference between going out and buying something because it looks cool and buying something the shovel's turning every day. And so, you know, I see a lot of these guys get a lot of equipment, and then I know a competitor of ours, you can go by their yard right now and the piece is sitting there 3 days a week. We rarely have one of our pieces of equipment at the yard. It's out working every single day. So I think that when you do sign up for a note like that, you need to make sure you're able to keep it moving. It's not scary if you're keeping it moving. You know, we have 18 pools on the book for this year, and we have, I think, 30 on order. And so we're trying to, we've got a goal in mind, and we're meeting with clients every day, and that you know, excavators to be moving every single day. So we figured out what our overhead recovery is on that machine. And when you factor that in, it's not necessarily that it's a payment, it's a part of the business, and the overhead recovery is going to take care of itself so long as you're able to, you know, sell and get work, you know, that balances the overhead recovery out. So I think, you know, there's something to be said about that. Don't let it scare you out. Look, I'm nervous too. I don't like signing up for that stuff. It's not fun, but it's necessary sometimes.
Jordan, I love that, man. You know, it's like if it's getting used, that's the difference. If it's getting used as it's part of the team. It doesn't matter if it works 1 hour and gets rained out. It doesn't matter if it works a 12-hour day. That thing's part of the team, you know. And if you look at the depreciation over the asset or over the life cycle of that asset, it's nothing, especially with rising costs and employee costs. It's nothing. 100. How long is that excavator going to last?
Well, right, exactly. You're talking about something. I mean, that's the great thing about an excavator, right? You see them. We traded our last excavator in with 6,700 hours on it.
Is it going to last 7 years?
Yeah, every bit.
7 years over 7 years. That's only $17,000. What's an employee cost?
Yeah,
I mean, if that thing's going to work.
It's true, but some of these guys, you got to be careful. You can't just, we know guys that like, just because your competition or your competitor or somebody got one doesn't mean you need one. And like, it's easy to get excited about shiny things. Like, we both love them, but man, it's got to make sense. And that's where we were. We actually had to trade up a size because we realized that our production rates weren't where they needed to be. And that was scary, but we had to make the decision. The production rates at the end of the day, we're in the labor business.
You nailed it too. I mean, you're making sure you're adding that and you're properly recovering that piece of equipment in your overhead. And I think that's one thing that, certain people forget is, you have to bill for that machine and you have to bill for it properly, and that machine may cost you $100 a day, but you need to bill out $200 a day. You have to make money on that machine and you have to make money to, repair it, fix it. And then you have to make money to buy the new one, yeah, I think as long as you're properly recovering for these pieces and they're constantly moving, yeah, but for me, like I have, 2 skid steers and a mini skid steer. I don't really need a third skid steer. There's times where I'd love a third skid steer, but I definitely don't need one. So that wouldn't be a smart purchase. But, like you guys said, your production rates weren't there. You needed to up it. And that was the move that you had to make. So it was a smart move.
Yeah, you take the fear out of it when you do those calculations and you know that it just makes sense financially to have it. There's no, worry or fear involved, especially when you have that much, work booked for it already. It just makes sense at that point. And I do have one last question here, guys, and that this is probably going to take us a little bit to get through it. If you guys want to talk a little bit about struggles right now in your business, beyond what we've already talked about, beyond material costs going up, gas prices going up, whatever we talked about, but right now in your business, what are you struggling with? Whether it's bleeding over from the previous season into this season, whether it's right now starting this season, what are you struggling with? And if possible, what are you going to do or what are you planning on doing to alleviate that struggle?
I think, I think at least for me, the elephant in the room is labor, and labor has been really tough for us. And we're more aggressively marketing and trying to recruit for, good team members than we are for jobs right now, because our schedule's pretty healthy. We're booked out a fair amount, and I see the potential where if we can get, a couple more of the right people, we can add on another crew and take a significant amount of work. But that's really, it's tough too, because, the snow just melted up here. And so nobody's thinking, oh, what are we going to do in the spring? And, it's like, oh, we're in the off season, and I'm on the mindset there's no off season. There's never an off season. We can always be doing something to be moving forward, and that's really what we're doing is we're trying to recruit really hard, trying to create a culture. We're doing some cool stuff just in our shop, with some practicing and whatnot, and trying to use it for content to hopefully, sway some people to come over to our side.
Is that the long game you're playing, Mike? Going that content route, going heavy into social media, like organic reach of potential employees? Are you doing paid ads too right now to kind of bridge that gap before that sort of organic reach comes into play?
Yeah, we're doing organic and paid, and just to touch on content. I'm jumping in head first into content, and we're gonna get into some YouTube and. There's some people on YouTube, like I was down at Aquascape, and Greg, the pond guy, he's the owner there, and he said one of the hardest working kids that was on his crew when I was down there, and they were building in their sandbox there. He found them through watching their YouTube content, and I think he was like 13 when he found them, and he just kept begging for a job, and finally he was old enough, and they hired him, and I mean he's a foreman for him, and so I think that helps. It's not just finding customers and having customers find you and get to know you on the content side, but it's having employees and potential team members find you and say, man, I want to go work for them. They do some cool stuff and looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Jordan, Kyle? Yeah.
We honestly are blessed with we got a lot of guys. They've all got their own challenges, and we've got our own challenges. So we're really trying to find our click. I'll be honest with you, with the pools, it's been challenging as far as logistics are concerned, and we're having a heck of a time finding our groove. So we are working on top of each other a lot. I think for me, I would like to really see that cleaned up. It's hard because I feel like we're great hardscapers, right? Like they really are. They're great hardscapers. They go out, they nail it, they crush it. They're almost too good, efficient wise, because my pool guys are learning, right? And we're trying to get that going, and we're doing well with it, but we need to find that sync. For us, we need to find that sync, and I don't know where that sync's going to be. So I would like to improve on that, and then I'd also just like to clean up our net profits. Is a lot of people don't want to talk about it much, but when you get into these big jobs, everybody likes to do them. They look at it, and it's cool, man. You feel cool to crush out these big jobs, and there's so much money that can be lost, or time or hours that you don't account for. And I would just like to personally, I feel like I owe it to my crew and my guys to fine tune that and make sure the nets are where they need to be, so that I can provide, or Kyle and I both feel that way, I know, provide the best possible paycheck for them. And I know everything's not about money, right? We have a good culture, but at the end of the day, if I can clean that stuff up and learn how to better account for it on larger projects, I can, put more in their pockets than our own. So I'd personally like to work on that myself.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got, I think like Jordan said, we've got a lot of great team members, and, like I said, they've all got their own strengths, and, we're working to incorporate the pools, but, we've got to strike the right balance with the number of guys per crew, and finding out, how that's all coming into play with the pool side being added. But another thing that I think we're struggling with a little bit right now is we really don't have an off season. We've laid pavers all the way through the winter, and the one aspect of that is difficult is there's a lot of time down here where it's wet and cold and just impossible to do plantings and grading. And so we've got a lot of jobs that have just small things that need to be buttoned up. And we need to backfill this. We need to put a few plants on this one. And we've got a little bit of landscaping and some touch-up work on that. So what we're trying to do right now is tighten everything up. And obviously we're getting ready to, launch into the season full speed. So we don't want to have those jobs not dragging us down. We don't want to have those jobs holding us back from jumping into 2022 strong. So trying to button up the little things, and like Jordan said, tighten up on both the profit side and on the quality side. We want to make sure our clients are getting a good quality job, finished product.
Is that did that prompt the move to Synced Up, or to implement Synced Up, to kind of tighten things up for both of you guys, both in the estimating side as well as the production rate side on the job site? Is that kind of what prompted that move to Synced Up?
Absolutely. It's something we've been wanting to do for a while. We've tried several different ways of tracking our production and trying to incorporate different aspects. Obviously we've got a time clock app, we've got try different ways to track production. And then we've got QuickBooks for estimating. So it was when we found that, and we talked to Wes, he did a Zoom call with us, and we really like how they've integrated everything. And it really offered a great opportunity for us to shore up all of those different fronts. And we're really excited to see how that's going to help us in 2022.
Definitely.
Yeah. Kyle's right. It is a game changer software. And, I know the thing is with hardscapers, right, is like, what we do is challenging. It is, man. Like when you look at the facets of a job, and we almost are like home builders, right? Except we do everything. We don't sub it out, and we deserve to make money, and we deserve to be profitable, right? And like we go to these nice homes and we look at these jobs, and these people have been successful, and we deserve to be just as successful. And so I think we just, like Kyle said, we just are trying to clean everything up. It's not that we can't do the work. It's not that we can't handle the work. We are looking at fine tuning this year, just fine tuning something to where it's the sharpest tool in the shed, and that's basically what we're trying to do with everything, like you said. And then part of that is him and I, we have to learn to work together on that process, whether it is your foreman and the owner or two owners. It takes a lot of effort. Like you put garbage in, garbage comes out. You've got to make it clean, and we're struggling with that because we're busy too. So we're just trying to, just really tighten things up.
Is the software the answer to that, or like is the software a partial answer to that? Like, I don't know where you kind of want to take that, but would it help to have some sort of I don't know, is software like a partial answer to that, or is it the full answer once it gets fully implemented into your business?
Well, like Jordan said, I don't mean to cut him off, but I think, like he said, it's garbage in, garbage out. And right now we're working on getting everybody comfortable with using it. It's a bit of a learning curve. I think it's really going to help with our production rates. It's going to help show the guys where we need to be with our production in order to be profitable. And then it'll also show us how we need to adjust our pricing. So it's definitely not the ultimate solution, and it's obviously not going to solve anything if we aren't, working hard to make it work for us. So,
yeah. So, Kyle's right. It is. I also think I think that there's not enough management. I think that as owners and stuff, it's hard for me to do it all. I'm trying to sell. I'm trying to bid jobs. Kyle's trying to bid them. And these softwares, nothing against the companies. They're like, they want to push their product just like we want to push their product. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a fantastic product, but it's a full-time job to be checking over the data in the software and making sure everyth's updated. Like you have to be on top of it. And so whether it's the owner doing it and there's an operations guy, I think that the software is one of our key answers, but I think that we're also missing out on another key admin role. Now, I don't know if that admin role is, which we think it is, a full-time sales guy. We have a part-time sales guy. We just started. So I think that part of making those fine-tuned adjustments is Kyle keeping everybody in the field and operations straight. We have a sales guy that takes some of the burden off me, and me being able to really stay focused on the overall business goals and the software and checking that stuff daily. Because at the end of the day, all of us can sit here and know how many hours are spent when they get home just looking over stuff and trying to keep up with it. You're exhausted, man. And then you sometimes don't have the time to check it like you need to. So the software is going to help drastically, but there's other things that need to be addressed with that, If I don't know if that kind of makes sense in a roundabout way.
It does. I was going to ask you, is the software the full answer or partial answer, and maybe hiring an admin person being the rest of that answer there, but I didn't want to imply that you guys weren't doing your jobs. So
no, we're not. We're really not. We have a great sales guy we just started, and he's actually been doing well. The pools are easier to sell than the hardscapes. Hardscapes is challenging because, Kyle and I were talking about that today. you can send Kyle out, right? And Kyle's primary job is not to sell, right? He doesn't do that every single day. Just like I'm not in the field anymore, hardly ever. And they're probably thankful. But, you know, he can go sell a hardscape job. You wonder why he can sell a hardscape job? A, he's got good communication skills, and B, he understands a hardscape job. He knows everything about it. He can talk the lingo. Now you bring in a sales guy, and we're learning this now, and I could teach him pools in one day. Hey, we got 12 models. It's water in a hole, and it pumps. All right, where would you like it? And most people that are calling for a pool know they want a pool, right? Where you go on a hardscape and you've got to be able to talk about, you look at this job behind us we built, you got the grill, you got the fire pit, you got a catalog that, let's be honest, is intimidating to some of our customers. I mean, I've had customers all the time, whoa, it's a lot in here. And now you've got a sales guy that's got to learn all the colors, all the products, and he's got to be confident enough to make that homeowner feel like signing a design contract with us, because we don't design anything or give proposals without a signed design contract. So do you send him out to a well-qualified lead by himself right away just to lose it at no fault of his own because he doesn't speak the lingo? Or does he have to ride with you for 6 months to speak the lingo so you obtain that design fee? We have the reputation. That's not the issue. People know who they're calling. But at the end of the day, when you're at the kitchen table, if you don't know how to spell paver, it doesn't help. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the struggles we're running into, with the, And Antonio's laughing. He's got something to comment.
I know. I'm waiting for Antonio to.
Yeah, let's hear it. He's laughing.
No, I love it, man. No, I love it, man. That's good. I got too many. I was just thinking about all the problems I got. Too much for a podcast. So.
Antonio, one struggle that you're going through right now in your business that you'd want to talk about?
Yeah, we just have a ton of transition going on, like tons and tons of transition internally. So it's not necessarily that we have like maybe 7 people on our management staff, somewhere around there, and we're like all moving into new roles a little bit. So it's not that we've got to learn personality types, but we're just moving into a totally different dynamic, totally different company, and we're really trying to set ourselves up to take our company to the next level. So it's like, even though we love these people we've worked side by side for the last 5+ years in some instances, we're starting to it's starting to get a little tense because not everybody knows what's going on. And we're kind of just rolling with the punches a little bit. So I think it's not something that I don't know that it's even something I can get advice from anybody or read a book and learn. I think it's just going to be a difficult next couple months until we get in the groove. But just a lot of transition.
Does that mean like being a little bit ambiguous about the roles so that people can kind of find their own roles and find what they're good at and organize themselves, and you can identify that for yourself and kind of organize them based on that?
Yeah, I found that it's really difficult to, if your clear expectations are not outlined, you're going to be set up for failure. However, right now we're trying to figure it out. So to line up clear expectations is very difficult. And so you're trying to learn every day and every week and figure out what works, what doesn't work. Oh, wait, this is, and so it would be a waste of time if we clearly defined expectations at this point. And it's just like, at some point, sometimes I just got to step back and just like breathe and just, step away or apologize or whatever, because we have a very, very tight knit company, like a family. And we're butting heads with everybody right now. It's really uncomfortable, but we're going to get, as soon as we get in the day to day and we're not in this funk, we'll be all right. But we're going to lose somebody. I know that. I just, one of my strongest suits is forecasting. And I know we will lose a key component through the struggle, and it just is what it is. And I hope that's not the case, but I think that will be the case, just with someone's just not going to like the transition. So that's something I'm dealing with right now at the company.
Can I ask what prompted the transition?
Yeah, so we have a maintenance company, high-end residential maintenance, and then a construction, and so those go hand in hand for us. We want to be taking care of your entire project. If you want to do a special project, we want to design it and install. So we were really department focused for the longest time. So like I always relate this to like AT&T. If anybody has ever had to deal with AT&T, that's like the way we are going. We're so department focused. It would be like, well, let me call, like you call about your bill, and they'd be like, oh, I've got to transfer you to Mike. That's the sales department. And then you ask about your appointment, and they're like, oh, I got to transfer you to the appointment desk or whatever. Like nobody knows anything that's going on, and they're a communications company. Like they're oblivious. And so if it was in our line of work, if it was our department, we knew what was going on. But if they built a relationship with me, they would ask me about a different service. And even though we're heavy into software, I couldn't tell these people accurately when their next service was being provided or where their account was at. And so we just transitioned to, instead of being department focused, we're just trying to be really client focused. And so my brother, which is my business partner, he was running a couple of departments. He's moving to head of operations as a whole of all of our maintenance operations. We've moved 2 production managers. They were crew leads. We moved 2 production managers underneath him. We've moved our office manager she's going to be a client relationship manager. She's going to help my brother with the existing clients. We've moved our irrigation and lighting guy to a business developer role. I mean, just like the whole dynamic is changing entirely. So same people, just new roles for everybody. And it's just uncomfortable. But the customers can get a better experience. And I think the dynamic we're setting up right now, we're setting ourselves up to really grow, to take our company to the next level. So I think our clients are going to love. But the way it works right now is if a maintenance client calls, for instance, they get in line with a brand new lead, and it just shouldn't be like that. Like our top customers should get the top care from us. They've helped us get from A to B, and so on and so forth. So we're just trying to make it a better client experience.
Yeah, it does. It's good, man. It's pretty cool, actually. I come from maintenance background originally, so I dealt with a lot of not doesn't sound like near that big, but we had a lot of crews and a lot going on. So I can definitely understand you want that client to feel like if they call on an install project and they're a regular maintenance client, that they're on the same page and ahead in the line. That's super cool, man, and super powerful. I think that's awesome that you're making that move and recognizing it. I just want to tell you that. So
yeah, thank you.
Well, guys, that seems like a good place to end it here. I want to say thank you to each of you guys for being on the podcast, for those one-on-one interviews, and now for this roundtable interview. I appreciate your time and everything that you give back to the industry through these interviews, as well as through where I found you guys through Instagram and the stories, the content that you put up through there. So I thank you for that. I'm just going to go around the table here and give you guys a chance to any closing thoughts, comments that you want to say, leave the audience with, as well as where they can find you online. We'll start with Jordan and Kyle, since you were the first on the podcast. Jordan, Kyle, where can our audience find you online, and any closing comments, remarks that you want to make?
You definitely find us on Instagram. Kyle and I do have separate pages. I will tell you that Kyle is amazing at install question. If you're a new guy getting into the business, definitely hit him up. He likes to be aggravated constantly. I try to make it a daily priority. And if I can help you with anything, I'll do my best. And I would also like to say, anybody that is out there trying to grow their company and just to hang in there, man, it's a challenge even for us guys that look like we're doing it 110%, man. Every day you're learning.
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, you can find me on Instagram. My username is Evolve Kyle, and obviously our company is Evolve Design Build LLC. And like Jordan said, reach out with any questions or concerns, and anything you want to talk about, and we'd love to hear from you. It's great to be on the podcast, Mike. It was real nice to get to talk to you again. Thanks for having us on.
Definitely. It's great to have you guys back on the show. And on to Antonio, since you were the next on the podcast. Any closing comments, remarks, and where can our audience go and find you?
Yeah, probably the best way would be on Instagram. Would be the easiest way to find us. I would say that, like, there's a lot of things that our team has implemented that they do really well. The things we were talking about with the numbers and this and that. And I'm not saying this stuff to boast. I haven't built any of these tools. It's been a struggle. I will say that one thing that's been successful for me, and this should be true for anybody, is like we're constantly students, and there's so much knowledge out there. I've been super grateful and blessed to go see a lot of very, very large companies. And just kind of see how they do things. And if you want to learn, the work's out there, the content's out there, stuff like this. I love it. Like, I keep hitting Mike up about the sandbox he's building. And I just love it. The fact that he's trying to teach his guys in his shop, just anything to elevate the industry. The fact that we're sitting here talking at, 8, 9 o'clock at night, just all of this stuff just continues to elevate the industry. We had Unilock and Alliance over to our place yesterday, and just constantly trying to learn. We're always students, and we always need to continue to learn. The content's out there. Just get out there and find it, is what I would say.
Definitely. Thank you, Antonio. And on to Mike at any closing comments, remarks, and where we can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at elevate.mi. And, just like what these guys said, I mean, this industry in a whole has so much to offer. It really does. And I mean, it's so rewarding. The community that's out there of, hardscapers and contractors is just what I've gotten is everybody's willing to help. And it's amazing. It's a little different maybe than seeing a guy at your local supplier, and you obviously want to nod and make nice and try and make conversation when you can. But I'll tell you what, if you're getting in industry, reach out to any of these guys. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think that was one of the things that when I was younger growing up is I was like, oh, I can do this on my own, I'll figure it out. I can tell you what, fast track it, ask questions, learn everything you can from other people who are where you want to be, and this podcast is a great place to start. So I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate you guys and all the time that you've put into this so far. To the audience, go check these guys out. I'm sure you have already, but if you haven't, then you definitely need to go see them on Instagram. It's a good place to start and spark a conversation with them, because definitely good guys to learn from in this industry. So thank you guys for joining me on the show, and that's the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go check out Jordan and Kyle at Evolve Design Build, Antonio at Zeppa's, and Mike of Elevate Outdoor Living at elevate.mi, all on Instagram. Give them some love for being on the show. Share this episode wherever you can to let them know that you just appreciate their time that they put into this. And once again, check out Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com and mention How to Hardscape to get $200 off accounting, bookkeeping, CFO services over there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.